First of all, I would like to welcome Professor Fاكنين. Firstly, for your fans, they don't know me. My name is Ahmad. I am a counseling psychologist, member of APA, American Psychological Association, member of Egyptian Association for Psychotherapists and Arab Federation of Psychotherapists. Fاكnين is known enough and he will present himself.
Well, I don't know if they know very well, but it's not the first time, but it's the first time with such an honorable person like you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
My name is Fáknין. I'll make it very short because we should discuss narcissism, not Fáknין.
Yes,
My name
please.
is Fáknין. I'm a professor of psychology and professor of business management in CIAPS, which is Cambridge, United Kingdom, Commonwealth Institute of Advanced and Professional Studies. It's a postgraduate institute in Cambridge. Before that, for about 5 years, I was visiting professor of psychology, clinical psychology in Southern Federal University in Rostov-on-Don in Russia until the war started. And I was let go because I was a foreigner. And aside from that, I started my work on narcissism, and as you said, in the actually late 1980s. I'm that old.
Yes.
And because there was very little literature and very little awareness of the condition, you're right, I had to invent a whole new language, which is currently in very wide use all over the world. Part of this language I coined originally, and part of it I simply adopted phrases and words from existing literature, mainly psychoanalytic literature. But I repurposed the words. I imbued them with modern meaning. So the way these words are used today, that's my work, but the words themselves are not mine. And then I wrote many books on the topic and so on and so forth. I had the first website for 10 years. It was the only website. I had the first 6 support groups for victims of narcissistic abuse. Narcissistic abuse is a phrase that I popularized. I was the first to describe narcissistic abuse in my book, which was published in the late 90s. And so on and so forth. So I've been in this field for well over 3 decades, among the first, if not the first, probably the first, for 3 decades. Then in 10 years later, around 2004, other people started to enter the field. That's the second generation. And now, as you well know, this is a hot button topic in psychology, and definitely the most widely discussed mental illness or mental disorder or mental problem, way more than borderline personality disorder, for example, which is pretty amazing.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Pretty amazing.
Yes. I would like to tell you that I'm done with my book about narcissism. It's written in Arabic.
Congratulations.
And the title of, yes, thank you so much. The title of the book is Narcissism is the Disorder of the Century. And then underneath, Narcissism from A to Z. And that will actually take me to the point. Sam, what do you think of this point? What do you think and why narcissism started to spread and to increase in modern times that way, in a notable way? We can notice that narcissism increased in a clear way. What's your explanation for that?
I'm going to present a nosology, in other words, a classification of narcissism, which is not very common, but I think is very helpful, with your permission. There is the first layer of clinical narcissism, and that is the post-traumatic condition. Narcissists, people diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder, usually have been traumatized and abused as children. They've been exposed to what we call adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs. And as a reaction to the trauma, they developed defenses. And one of the defenses was the false self. It's a kind of imaginary friend who is godlike and is protective of the child. And that imaginary friend has all the properties the child does not possess and wished it had possessed. So this imaginary friend is all-powerful, all-knowing, brilliant, perfect. In short, it's a deity, it's a godlike entity. And then the child merges with his false self and becomes a narcissist later in life. So there is this post-traumatic reaction. Now, when I say abuse and trauma, I don't only mean sexual abuse or physical abuse, or I mean, for example, a parent who is absent, emotionally absent,
Yes.
indifferent, a parent who is overprotective of the child, doesn't allow the child to get in touch with peers or with reality, a parent who instrumentalizes the child, uses the child as a tool to gratify the parent's wishes and fantasies and dreams and needs, a parent who parentifies the child, uses the child as a parent figure. So the parent becomes the child and the child becomes the parent. That's a form of abuse. Any refusal by the parent to accept the emerging boundaries of the child, to allow the child to separate and to become an individual, that is abuse. And a reaction to this could be codependency, could be even borderline personality disorder, if there is sexual abuse. And so, but in, luckily, a minority of the cases, the reaction is pathological narcissism. So that's the first layer. That's the clinical psychological layer. But on top of that, like a pyramid, we have other layers, other layers. So the second layer, second layer is what I call the reactive layer. The reactive layer is people want to be noticed. People want attention. People want to be seen. People want to stand out. And today, in big cities, in our modern civilization, it's very difficult to compete with hundreds of millions of other people or with billions of other people online for attention. So in order to be noticed, in order to be seen, you need to escalate your behavior. You need to stand out by being unique, by being special. In other words, you need to act as a narcissist. And the question is, why do we need to be seen? The need to be seen is a survival strategy. A baby that is not seen is a dead baby. The baby needs to attract the attention of the mother and later on the father in order to survive. So
you are connecting the mode of survival mode with narcissism.
Yes.
So it's fight, flight, freeze, survival mode. Right?
Yes. That's what I'm trying to say, that narcissism is not merely a clinical condition. It is actually intimately linked to our primordial, initial, infantile survival strategies that we developed. As a baby tries to attract mother's attention, we as adults are trying to attract other people's attention, because to not have any attention whatsoever is to feel dead, to experience death by proxy. And then there is a third layer, and that is the societal layer. Our modern civilization is highly narcissistic. It rewards narcissistic motivations and narcissistic behaviors. If you're ambitious, if you're ruthless, if you're defiant, if you are driven, then you become Elon Musk, you become Donald Trump. Society rewards these behaviors, which are essentially narcissistic behaviors. So society is structured in a way that narcissists rise to the top. And in order to accomplish things in life, you need to be more and more and more narcissistic. And the irony is that this is conformity. As we become more conforming, we want to belong. Yes, we want to belong, we want to be accepted, we want to be part of a group, we want to interact with other people, even if only digitally. We want an affiliation, an identity, and this is what we call identity politics. Yes. So today, identity is intimately linked and inextricably linked to narcissistic behaviors and to narcissistic motivations and to narcissistic psychodynamics. So if you look at the big picture, you have a clinical condition, then you have a survival strategy, and then you have a society that rewards you that encourages you to be a narcissist. It is a miracle that we don't have many more narcissists than we do. Because everything around you, everything inside you encourages you to become a narcissist.
It's feeding the idea.
Yes, we call it reinforcement.
Yes.
There is positive reinforcement.
Yes.
For being a narcissist, and there are quite a few negative reinforcements if you refuse to be a narcissist. So
I can say, and I can understand from your words, Sam, that simply survival mode or this kind of mood is simply a defensive mechanism, as we can explain narcissism with the simplest determination or the simplest words as narcissism itself is a defensive mechanism. All the behavior, all the techniques, all the tactics, dynamics of narcissism is based on defense, like gaslighting, silent treatment, ghosting, ignoring. All these sorts of behavior are based on so simple idea, which is I am defending my ego. I'm defending myself towards danger. From the point of view of narcissism, there is a danger. When you criticize me, when you comment on my behavior, when you don't give me unconditional love, all this is a sort of threat, and I have to defend myself. So I go on a survival mode and I start to practice the dynamics. That's great. Another question, which Sam Fáknin explained before, and I really like that explanation, which is the special relation between borderline, and narcissists. Both narcissists have something to give to the borderline, and the borderline is something to give to the narcissist. Can you explain, please, this special relation?
This has to do a lot with another concept, which was first described in 1989. It's not my work, Sanders' work, and that is the concept of the shared fantasy. The narcissist and the borderline, both of them possess a false self. But the borderline is the narcissist's mirror image. Before we come to that, it's important to understand that the etiology of these two personality disorders, the etiology is identical. They are both survivors of childhood abuse and trauma.
Correct.
So the first thing is they resonate. They resonate with each other. They recognize each other immediately. There is an unspoken, subliminal, unconscious, call it what you wish, a vibe that passes between them and says, we are one and the same. We are the same family, you know. And so this is the first bond that is created. The second element is that they both have a false self. And the false selves of these two are complementary. The borderline is perfectly constructed and suited to uphold and support and buttress the narcissist's false self. For example, the borderline sustains the narcissist's grandiosity. She regards the narcissist as a godlike figure that she can admire and worship and cherish. And the narcissist regards the borderline as someone in need of saving or rescuing, someone he can act as a god too. She can be his worshiper. She can be in his cult. It's a cult-like situation. And the third element is a shared fantasy. Both of them required a fantasy in order to survive. The borderline's fantasy is an external regulator, someone on the outside that can help her to regulate her emotions and her moods, to stabilize them, to afford her a sense of safety and predictability and certainty. So she's looking for a rock around which to construct her fantasy. Someone who is a special friend or a special person, someone who is a father figure, someone who is so the narcissist, because the narcissists project self-confidence, they project omnipotence, being all-powerful, they project omniscience, they project a godlike figure. So the borderline finds it very easy to bond with the narcissist and to cast the narcissist in this role of an external regulator. On the other hand, what the narcissist requires is a mother figure. He requires a mother figure in his shared fantasy. We should not forget that narcissists emotionally, psychologically, are anywhere between 2 and 6 years old. Closer to 2 years old, actually.
Yes.
And so they're looking for a mother all the time. And the borderline is in the perfect capacity to provide a maternal figure because she is a close replica or clone of the narcissist's original mother. So here they can create a shared fantasy. In this shared fantasy, the narcissist is the protector, the savior, the rescuer, the provider, the regulator of emotions, stabilizer of emotions, the stabilizer of moods, the all-knowing figure, the father figure, a god. It's a religion. It's a private religion within this cult.
Yes. Yes.
And on the other hand, the borderline is the caring, engulfing mother who provides the equivalent of a symbiosis. It used to be called the symbiotic phase. They create a symbiosis and they merge and fuse and become a single organism with two heads. And
I can add, yes, I can add to this deep analysis, deep psychoanalysis to the relation between a borderline and the narcissist, another common ground between the narcissist and the borderline. The narcissist behavior is so difficult to be taken or to be accepted by most of the normal personalities. Meanwhile, the borderline is having a deep fear of abandonment. So as if someone is abusing, and when the borderline get bored of that and decide to leave, something inside, something deep inside in the borderline say, shout, no, please go back. Go back to this maternal figure. Go back to this person that will share me the fantasy. And then, of course, that's something so nice for the narcissist that someone is taking and accepting all these behaviors and giving somehow unconditional love. So it's a bond, it's a tie.
Yes,
Sam, there is another point.
With your permission, you touched on two very important issues. The borderline has what we call the twin anxieties.
Yes.
She has separation insecurity, which is colloquially known as abandonment anxiety, and she has engulfment anxiety. She is not only afraid to be abandoned and rejected, but she is equally afraid of being consumed and digested and to vanish. So she is going through cycles that are known as approach, avoidance, repetition, compulsion. She approaches, then she avoids, she runs away, she comes back, she runs away again, and so on and so forth. The narcissist is perfectly suited to react to these repetition cycles or compulsions because the narcissist also has his own approach avoidance cycle. He has idealization, devaluation cycles. So the narcissist pushes the borderline away exactly when she needs to run away. This is a perfect match in this sense. Their cycles are totally synchronized. That's an important point. And yes, the narcissist all the time tests his partner. The narcissist is a child, so the narcissist is saying, I'm going to verify that my partner is a real mother, that she loves me unconditionally, that never mind what I do to her, never mind how I misbehave, she's still going to love me. So he abuses her. He pushes her away. He attacks her. He undermines her. Everything. But it's a test. It's just a test. And if she passes this test, then she's a real good mother, good enough mother, because that means her love is unconditional. It does not depend on the narcissist's behavior or misbehavior. All these dynamics are taking place in the shared fantasy.
Just a question came to my mind when you are talking about borderline and narcissist now. Just a question came right now. Of course, you know the 4 styles of attachment that was developed during childhood, which is anxious, disorganized, avoidant, and secure. How you classify, how you explain the attachment of a narcissist and the attachment of a borderline?
they both have an insecure attachment style. This classification was first proposed by Bowlby and later developed by others.
Right.
So they both have an insecure attachment style, but with different emphases. So the narcissist would have a more an attachment style that is more avoidant. Yes, exactly. That is more avoidant, a bit more aggressive, and so on.
And the borderline is tending to anxious.
Yes, the borderline would be a lot more anxious. So the borderline, the borderline's attachment is very similar, very reminiscent of the codependent attachment. And the difference between the borderline and the codependent is the codependent is conscious of her attachment style and uses it to manipulate the partner. The codependent emotionally blackmails the partner, and she does it knowingly. And so she says to the partner, I cannot survive without you. I cannot live without you. I cannot function without you. You owe me. I sacrifice a lot for you, and so on. This is the codependent style. Whereas the borderline does exactly the same thing, but she's totally unconscious of this. It comes from, but generally speaking, yeah, these are two insecure attachment styles that are perfectly suited, because the borderline needs the avoidance style because she needs to run away from time to time.
Of course.
She needs her freedom from time to time.
Yes.
And the narcissist needs someone with an anxious style because he likes his partner to be dependent on him. He likes the partner to be dependent on him. Right. He conditions the partner to be dependent on him because that's the only way that mother will not abandon him. So there is a perfect match here between narcissist and borderline.
They cope together. They cope together. They
complement each other.
One of the things that I want Sam to explain to our followers, introjects. This terminology is one of your special terminologies that you've explained perfectly. So to all our friends all over the world, Sam wants to tell you something about introjects and the mind of the narcissist. So
I wish it were my work. It's not my work. Introjection is a basic term, a very important term in the work of what is known as the object relation schools. The object relation schools were a group of thinkers, a group of scholars and psychologists over a period of something like 25 or 30 years in the United States and in the United Kingdom. And they came up with a 4-stage process based on Freud's work and other, but they came up with a 4-stage process. Internalization, identification, introjection, and incorporation. Now, I will not go into all the details here, but I will focus on 2 important elements. What they were suggesting is that sometimes, because we are afraid to lose somebody, we're afraid to be abandoned, or because we have decided actually to lose somebody, we have decided to separate and move on. As children, what we do, we create a representation of that important person in our mind. So if you're a child, a 2-year-old child, and you're afraid to lose mommy, you're afraid she will abandon you, because she keeps leaving the room, she keeps frustrating you, she keeps disappearing on you. There's no object permanence or object constancy. So what you do, you create a copy of mommy, a photograph, a snapshot, an avatar, call it as you wish, and you internalize it. It's in your mind. And now mommy is in your mind all the time. There's no risk of abandonment. That's one solution. The other solution is when you want to separate from mother, when you want to become an individual, that is induced.
Separation and individuation.
Exactly. The Mahler separation individuation. That is an induced loss. You're choosing to lose mother. But it's still terrifying, isn't it? You're 2 years old, and there's a whole wide world out there. So you create an image of mother, and you internalize it. So internalization fulfills different functions. Now, similarly, you are going to internalize whole relationships. What you're going to do is you're going to divide your mind in 2 or in 3, whatever, and then the parts of your mind are going to interact with each other, simulating a relationship you have with someone. So these are the two types of internalization and identification. Introjection is the voice, the messages that these internalized representations have. When you internalize mother, you don't only internalize her image, you internalize everything she's ever told you. She may have told you, you're wonderful, you're lovable, you're going to succeed in life. She may have told you, you're ugly, you're stupid, you're good for nothing, you're inadequate, you're a total failure. Whatever the case may be, the image of mother in your mind, known as the introject, carries with it mother's messages, mother's voice, mother's constant signaling inside your mind. And this is known as the introject. In the context of narcissism, what the narcissist does, he creates an introject inside your mind. He creates a representation of himself or of herself in your mind. And this representation in your mind, this avatar.
So simply we can simplify introjects as absorbed voice of the mother.
Absorbed voice of anyone, not only mother. You can introject anyone. So if you're in a relationship with a narcissist, you will introject the narcissist. There will be a small narcissist inside your head, and this narcissist will keep talking, will keep having a voice long after the real narcissist has left your life. Exactly as you would remember your mother and father long after they are deceased, after they're dead.
And that's one of the good reasons. And that's one of the good reasons why narcissists overcome their victim's mind.
Yes, they insinuate themselves into the victim's mind, abusing the process of internalization and introjection. And that is a big problem, because it's not easy to get rid of this introject. And the reason it's not easy is that the introject of the narcissist collaborates with other introjects in your mind. It creates coalitions with other introjects in your mind that have the same negative message. So if the narcissist is abusive towards you, if the narcissist criticizes you all the time, and so on, the narcissist's critical voice will remain in your mind, and it will make a collaboration, a coalition with other voices in your mind that have the same negative message. So this voice is amplified by other introjects. And the whole process is known as entraining. Entraining is a recent discovery.
Yes.
It's a recent discovery in neuroscience. We discovered, I'm saying we because I'm a professor of neuroscience. So we discovered that people who play music together, their brain waves become totally synchronized. We cannot tell the difference. Whose brain is it? They become one.
Harmony, a sort of harmony.
Yes, hive brain, totally harmonized.
Yes.
And so the narcissist does this to you. The narcissist verbally abuses you using the same words again and again and again. It's like hypnosis or like a mantra, some kind of mantra in meditation. And the narcissist actually entrains you, synchronizes his mind with your mind, allowing him entry to your mind, access, and then he implants the introject. This is the process, which is very terrifying. You know, in one word, brainwashing. Narcissist brainwashes you.
Yes, it's a sort of brain. But since we have Sam Fáknin with us, can you please explain to us your way or the recommended ways to treat a narcissist from his disorder? Because usually you find some people are using techniques like DBT or CBT, and they depend completely on DBT and CBT on treating a narcissist. Is there anything you can add to us, we can learn from you about treating a narcissist?
First of all, it's no treatment modality that I'm aware of has any efficacy with narcissism. And that includes schema therapy, that includes EMDR, that includes Millen's work, that includes Kernberg transference therapy. That, trust me, in the last 30 years I've studied all of them.
Gestalt seat.
Gestalt, the transactional analysis, I mean, you name it.
Yes.
None of them,
yes.
none of them succeed with narcissism, because narcissism is an absence. It's not a presence. There's nobody there.